So you are here because you want to do your Mastery gradebook in Schoology. So we're going to go through a couple steps today. The first one is you need to locate your grade setup on Schoology. Once that's done, you're going to need to identify your learning targets. So this is a traditional gradebook that has quizzes, homework, and surveys, working together scores. These are not learning targets. So once you've identified your learning targets, you're going to replace categories with the learning targets. The learning targets I'm using this year are going to be the science and engineering practices. So each one of the science and engineering practices is going to be its own learning target, and I'm going to be assessing each one. So in a different grade book, I've already started adding these as categories. So I have SEP1, Science and Engineering Practice 1, answering questions and defining problems. SEP2, 3, 4, 5. I would have to go through and add all of them before I begin completing my grades. So of course I'm not going to do homework, but I'm on SEP6, which is constructing explanations and designing solutions. I'm going to insert that here, and we'll just shorten it to that. Making sure that I have the total points as opposed to the percents clicked. So total points, and then create. I would continue moving so that I have all my learning targets before moving on to the next step. So we have already added our course learning targets. Now we're going to go to add a mastery grading scale based on points and call it mastery grading. I've done this step already. I'm going to show you how you would start it over when you're needing to set up your own. I'm going to go to add. I'm going to go to scale, and I'm going to make sure that the points has been selected. So this is the pretend one that I'm adding now. I'm going to call it mastery grading, and I'm going to have a band level for every way that I'm going to assess students. So if I think that 4 is going to be a master or mastery, call that 4, I can call it top, whatever helps you differentiate between your levels of learning. Keep going. 3, proficient. To add levels as you need them. I'm going to cancel this and show you the levels that I've created already for mastery grading. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So no evidence, not yet, basic, proficient. And of course these titles can change based on your school site. So we've just set up a mastery grading scale based on points. So just to be clear, I went to add, I pressed scale, and instead of percentage I used points, adding 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Now we're going to add a final grading scale and make sure that's set in our final grading settings. So a final grading scale is going to help you when you want to pass back to MySys. So again, you're going to go to add, but this time it's going to say for percentage, not points. You're going to call it the pretend. Well, not really, because you're really going to do it. Mastery final. And you're going to create the letter equivalent for each of your bands. So 80 to 100. Add a level for B. 60 to 79. Level for C. 40 to 59. D. 20. 39. And finally F. 0 to 20. 19. Okay, I would press save if I needed to. Of course, I would click only show the letter grade. And because I've already identified it, I'm just going to press cancel. So when you get it completed, it's going to have your bands that are equal. So we just finished creating a mastery final scale, but we also have to make sure that our final grade settings is set to mastery final. Your default is probably going to be just default here. So you're going to have to come to final settings and then press mastery final after you've identified those bandwidths, and most importantly, press save. Once you're done pressing save, you should scroll to the bottom and it would say Mastery Final. One last step. We need to create a Mastery column for every learning target so that we can punch in the grade that we're using for our professional judgment to assign a score for each learning target. So I'm going to show you the 2 students I've added to this class. These are their overall scores. For every learning target before a report card, we want to make sure that we give a score so that we can, looking at the body of evidence, assess whether they met the criteria or not. We have 4 possible scores, or 5 possible scores. And as a professional, we need to enter in the one that most reflects their learning over time. All of the assignments before the final learning mastery column have been entered as a 0 factor. So I'm going to go to bulk edit to show you what that means. This is one of my favorite features. The factor for these assignments were all entered as 0. So when they were entered for points, it would not affect their score. Then one assignment has been entered, that's the mastery column for that learning target that has a regular factor. But I can see here it needs to be changed for the mastery final score. Another trick is to make sure that this assignment has a due date as the last day in your semester so that they all are located in order at the end of your gradebook in Schoology. I'll save these changes and go back to show you what I mean. Right now when my students are looking at their grades, because I've not entered a grade for this final assignment, they're only going to see points. They will not see a letter grade. So now looking at this evidence, I'm going to have to give this student a grade on SEP1. I'm going to go back to how I sorted it in Gradebook so you can see how to enter it. Go to All Materials, go to SEP1, and Assess. This is the final assessment for that learning target. So I see the student has improved over time. I would call this a 3. The student seems to still struggle, and their most recent score shows that they did not meet the criteria, while at one point they did. I would write in a 2. Now that I've added these 2 scores in, when the student looks at their grade, they're going to see a grade. It looks here like their final grade is an F, so I must have made a mistake when I completed this assignment. Let's take a look. It seems like they're getting graded out of 100 points. Instead, it should be set as the mastery grading score. So when I entered in their 3 or their 2, it was then equated out to a 4. This assignment also has a factor of 1, the only assignment that does, and so it should produce the result we want. Okay, what time is this due? Let's say that's the date, and then 11:59. Perfect. Let's go back to make sure that we have what we need. Go back to Gradebook. And here you will see their score. So now their score, their final score for the learning target was a 3, and their grade is a B. As we see more final scores in the rest of the learning targets, this grade would maybe be averaged depending on how the teacher decides to figure it out. Good luck with Mastery Gradebook!